Hi, my name is Terry, and I'm going to talk real life. Winter is coming. It is going to be cold. So, just to share some tips on how to save money and energy and stay warm this winter. Um, it's going to be cold, and food budgets are up. Gas prices are up, and we just don't have extra money now to warm ourselves in the wintertime because frankly we need food and we need gas to get to and from work to make the money to pay the bills, so on and so on. So if we can save a little bit of money on our energy costs, that'd be great. So tip number one is wrap your windows. Unless you got some new fancy windows perfectly installed, you're going to have air coming through the windows. Not only that, even when you put your hand up to a window, you're going to feel cold. And I don't care how many double panes, how much air is in between those windows, you touch the window, it's going to feel cold, right? So that means that cold is radiating off the window into your house. So any other additional barrier you can put over that is going to be beneficial. So obviously during the day, you want to leave the curtains open so the sunlight gets in. And then at night, as soon as that sun goes down, you need to shut the curtains. Shutting the curtains will help be protection of an additional layer of that cold air radiating off of those windows. You can also, for a cost, you'd have to go out and buy that plastic that you put around the window, which is a pain, but I've done it. It helps. In the Christmas, I've even covered some windows with wrapping paper, windows that we don't use. Wall air conditioners are also something that air will come straight through. So make sure any wall air conditioners you have are protected. I would take a box and I would wrap it up for the holidays. It'd look like a present. But you take a box and you just tape the box around the air conditioner, and that will help prevent that cold air from coming through your air conditioner vents. You don't think of it until you put your hand up to it and you feel that cold air coming through. Any little bit of cold air is going to affect everything. So you want to try to prevent any cold air from coming into your house as much as possible. You can also use that same plastic wrap to put around the window. But once again, that's an additional cost. And we're talking about saving money and using things that we can just kind of find around the house. Finding any kind of paper, wrapping paper is pretty cheap if you want to use that. If you get a box, if you go maybe to local supermarket, they got boxes in the back. Measure your wall window, your wall air conditioner. Obviously, the window ones you should take out. I have one that I can't take out of the window because, frankly, the window's hardly there anymore. So I just got to wrap it up as best I can. So those are your windows, your floors. If you have tile, hardwood, any kind of non-carpeted surface, it's going to get cold in the winter. So we want to cover those floors. So ideally, an area rug would be great. I know I have hardwood floors in one of my rooms, and I need to get some sort of an area rug this year because of the energy costs. But if you don't, throw a blanket down. Just be careful when you're walking, but throw a blanket down, maybe in an area that you're not walking as much, but as much of that surface as you can cover, the better. Because, material like blankets and things are going to hold the heat and keep things warm. Certain surfaces that are smooth, like wood, like ceramic, like tile, like all of those things are going to hold the cold, and that's what they're going to release out. So unless you've got fancy floor heating, you want to try to keep your floors covered as much as possible. Another tip is if you have those plug-in heaters, don't worry about the size. Frankly, they all put out the same amount of heat. Just some will work a little quicker than others. I have an oil one. I like that one because it's like a slow warming. And then you have the ones with the fans and all those things. But I saw somebody's video the other day, and he talked about when you look at the wattage and all of that of all the different size room heaters, they all put out the same amount of heat. They all put out the same amount of energy. So buy the cheapest one. that you can. Because they're all going to do the same thing, just some will take a little bit longer to warm up the room than others, and especially the ones with the little fans that'll blow the air around. But those are very beneficial. But my safety tip on those is do not use extension cords. They get hot. I've experienced it myself. I've seen a number of home fires because of these extension cords and things being plugged in. Not all extension cords are for every item. So these things draw a lot of energy. And if you ever use an extension cord, you can feel it. You can feel that heat. And that's a fire hazard. It's drawing too much. So you need to plug them into a wall. If you have to rearrange your room to accommodate these room heaters, then that's what you need to do. Because being warm, you also want to be safe because you don't want to wake up in the middle of a fire. It's not the kind of warmth that you want, I'm sure. So please, please, please make sure they're plugged into a wall outlet that is suited for that device. Do not use extension cords. Do not use power strips. Not for these, even the little mini heaters. Some of these cheaper power extension cords, which frankly is what we're going to be using, is the $5, $6 ones. They're not always the right amount of wattage or whatever the term is for these devices. I use area room heaters frequently. I have certain rooms in my house that are colder than others, and I will use them to just warm up the room for a certain amount of time. So use them, but use them wisely. At night, I will just warm up a room and then I'll leave it. When you go to sleep, you're not going to feel the cold as much. You can always throw on an extra blanket. Do not run it all night. You don't need it all night unless you have zero heat in your house at all. You don't need to run them all night. I turn mine off usually right when I'm about to fall asleep. I have a nice one that has a little timer on it. I can just time it for like 4 hours and I can just go to sleep and know that it will shut off. So use them, but use them wisely. Another idea is to just stay warm. Bundle up. Layers are great. My hands get freezing cold, even when it's 70 degrees out. So I buy those at the dollar store. I get those fingerless gloves. They usually come in a set where they have like one full glove and then a fingerless glove that goes over top. So I have the fingerless gloves and I wear them all winter. All winter. I don't go to bed with them because they tend to cut off some of my circulation, so I have to be careful falling asleep with them on because as you're sleeping, you're turning and they can get tight. But they're great. The main areas on your body that loses heat is going to be your head, your hands, and your feet. So keep them covered and keep those areas warm. You can, retain a lot of heat within your body just by covering those areas. So don't be ashamed to wear a hat in your house. I had a house one time where I ran out of oil. I knew nothing about oil heat, and I ran out of oil. And then until the people could come to bring me oil, I wore a hat, gloves, a scarf. I had my coat on. I had two pair of socks. I had two pair of pants. And I was fine. It wasn't ideal, but I was comfortable. I was able to deal with it until I could get the heat back on because my house got really cold. But you can do it. We don't need to keep our house at 70 degrees. You don't even need to keep your house at 65 degrees. Let's face it. As soon as springtime comes and it's like 62 degrees outside, we're all outside wearing shirts and shorts. So saying you can't handle 62 degrees is, can you really? No, I don't like the cold. 62 to me, it might as well be 20. So I bundle up. I wear my little gloves. I wear my hoodies, and I wear my layers and things, and it works. Another good tip is to move. I'm a couch potato. Remember them old-fashioned little dolls we used to buy, couch potatoes? That's me. I'm not an active person. I'm lazy by nature. I like to just chill and relax. I like to, just that's it. That's me. I'm not a up and moving around person. But in the winter, every 30 minutes, you have to get up and move. You have to do something. Our bodies are great producers of heat. As soon as we start sweeping a floor or vacuuming, you get warm. The other day I was freezing in the morning, and on my afternoon lunch break, I got up to just to do some, vacuuming, some sweeping, just to get up and move around because my job, I sit most of the day. So I worked up a sweat. I had to take off my long sleeve shirt and put on a t-shirt because I got so hot. And as soon as I stopped and I sat back down, like 30 minutes later, I got cold again, had to put my jacket back on. So, the proof is in the pudding. You move around a little bit, your body warms itself up. Now, granted, you can pile blankets all over yourself and things like that. But, the best thing to do is to move around. It's also good for your joints. It's good for your body to not sit and be frigid and cold for such a long time. You stiffen up, you tighten up, and you don't feel good. You feel bleh. And who wants to feel bleh? It's already winter. It already sucks. It's already a pain in the butt and nobody likes it. So don't torture yourself any more than you have to. So every 30 minutes or so, set an alarm, set a timer. If you're watching regular TV, who does that anymore? If you're watching regular TV and a commercial comes on, get up and walk around. Just do something. Me, I'm trying to get my house in order. I'm trying to declutter and really trying to straighten out my whole life. So every 30, 45 minutes, I get up, and for like 5 minutes, I'll just pick up something or sweep something or put something away or sort through some papers or, try to do some little task. Wipe down the bathroom sink. Then the next time I'll wipe down the toilet. Then the next time I'll wipe down the kitchen sink. And, so so by the end of the day, my house is clean. So, it can serve multiple purposes, but it also doesn't spend any money. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to save money. Food is so expensive. My food budget has doubled and it's insane. And I don't know how to cook, so I can't be creative in the kitchen. So, we have to cut back where we can, but do it wisely. We don't want to suffer. We don't want to hurt ourselves. We don't want to make ourselves sick. So, so far, none of these things have cost us anything unless you want to buy the plastic for your windows, unless you don't have a space heater, need to go buy one. So far, bundle up, put blankets on any floor that's not carpeted, cover any windows with anything you have. I mean, I have not been opposed to putting sheets up over my windows or different things. Just that extra barrier, that extra layers, one other layer is going to help you all the more. If you have ceiling fans, I used to laugh at my father when we were young because he used to switch the blades on the ceiling fan to go in the other direction. And I'd be like, this is ridiculous. What is this really doing? But then more and more and more I hear people doing it. I'm like, wow, he was really onto something back in the day. But I guess that's why they designed them that way. But, so I've done it, but not like regularly because I've always been able to afford my heating. This winter, I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford my heating. I've had a lot of extra expensive. I've had a lot of other things come up this year, and I'm really tight. My budget is so super tight that I'm trying to do everything I can. So I will be flipping my ceiling fans this year. Maybe not so much in the bedrooms because my bedroom gets very, very cold. So I don't want to move any air in that room while I'm sleeping. Maybe during the day just to keep it going. But that ceiling fan moves, even at low, it moves really, really fast. But, maybe even when you're not home, run those ceiling fans in the opposite direction so that heat isn't just sitting at the ceiling because heat rises. We all know heat rises. And if it sits up there, it's not going to help you. It's just going to stay up there and it's going to warm your ceiling. Your ceiling's going to be all nice and cozy. You're going to be on your couch, practically on the floor, freezing, and you're going to want to be up on the ceiling and you can't. So let's try to move that air down. So it's worth a try. If you have a really fast ceiling fan, it might be aggravating for you, but maybe in a room you're not using, so that air is circulating through the house. But, you have to do something because we're trying to save as much money as we can for our heating. If you're not in a room and you have the ability to turn off the heat, close the vents. I don't. I have baseboard heating. But I know, in some places I've lived before, we would shut off the vents in some of the rooms you aren't using, and then shut the door and then seal the door. Like you'd have to put something, on the bottom of the door so the air's not coming through. But why heat a room you're not using? It doesn't make any sense. You don't want that room to be freezing cold. You don't want to turn it off completely, but you can adjust the vent down to its lowest setting. It's going to help. It's really going to help. If you have a fireplace, they don't all produce heat. My fireplace is surrounded by a lot of brick, and the brick gets warm. And we will be using our fireplace this winter. We haven't used it since we moved in here, so this should be fun. But the brick warms up, and that will warm up the room. But if you don't have a fire, if you have like one of those big arching fireplaces that look beautiful with the stockings and all your decorations, all that heat's going up the chimney. It's not going to warm your house. And anybody who has one is probably like, I don't feel any warmth coming from here. Unless it is set up where it gets warm around the fireplace, you're not going to feel the heat off of that fire because all that heat goes, the heat's going to go straight up and you're not going to feel it. So be mindful of that because you could be losing heat. So, that's another little tip on not losing heat. Seal off any doors you're not using. I have a side door and a front door. My front door is not sealed properly, so we tape it up. We actually use tape and tape up the door. In the wintertime, we don't use that door because the cold air comes through all those gaps. So until we can get a new door, when's that going to happen? We're just going to seal it off because it's just going to lose air. It's just going to, so just like the windows, I tape it up. The door itself doesn't have to be taped because it only has little tiny windows. You just tape up the hole around the door and seal it up good. My husband will even stick some stuff. Sometimes we'll take those plastic bags and stick it in the gaps because it has some gaps to really seal it up, and then we tape it over top of that. So, we got to stay warm. It's going to be a cold one. I don't know, Farmer's Almanac said it was going to be cold. I live in the northeast of the United States, and I feel like it's going to be cold. I felt the cold coming. I'm very sensitive to the cold. I don't like the cold. And I felt it coming. My fingers are freezing even right now. My fingerless gloves are over on my desk. But, we got to stay warm together. We got to, share helpful tips and ideas with each other so we can get through this. I'm going to learn how to cook. I'm very slowly trying to figure out how to use little bit of ingredients for a lot of food. So, looking forward to it. Thanks. Stay warm.